Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I do have another reading vlog for you all. Today's reading vlog is themed. I know last reading vlog that I posted was like solely dedicated to Mistborn, and that was fun. I really enjoyed that. We'll do that again some other time, but now I want a theme. We're gonna do a theme. I'm excited about the theme. Reading vlog is dedicated to reading YA fantasy books for multiple reasons. I've been neglecting this genre, this age range specifically. The only like fantasy type genre that I like to consume on like ebook or on audiobook are like urban fantasy or light like fantasy romance, and that's been my preferred medium of reading for quite some time. But that means that my physical fantasy shelves are like piling up. I need to read them, decide if I want to keep them or not, get rid of them. I will like add in a clip of like what I haven't read mixed in with like some of the series that I started, but it's quite a bit, and I kind of just want to get through them. I am looking for, I know it's YA, so there's going to be a little bit of a romance, I'm assuming, in most of these books, but what I'm looking for is something fun but also like really intriguing as well. Some of like the fantasy, like YA fantasies that I enjoyed are like Cinda Williams' Chima. I really enjoyed the first book in the Mirror Visitor Quartet. I do really enjoy Libba Bray's stuff as well. Like that's a YA fantasy I've really enjoyed. His Fair Assassin trilogy. Again, all those have like a romance, and I'm fine with them having like a side romance, but I also want like a really good plot in the middle of it too. So yeah, we're gonna get through some of them. I have not chosen like a list. I don't think I'm gonna go with vibes, but within this genre. So the first book that I have chosen, because I want to start off something with something good, or what I hope is going to be good, and the book that I chose is Give the Dark My Love by Beth Revis. I haven't heard too much about this one. The one review that I heard like on BookTube by someone that I follow was like not very good, but I'm willing to give it a shot. What I do know is that there is some necromancy elements in this book, which I love necromancers. And I think some sort of plague. So that is the plan for this reading vlog. Again, I have no set stack of books that I've chosen like beforehand. We're just reading YA fantasy to see what is good and what is not. I don't know if I'll put in like a lot of like b-roll. I kind of just want to like get in, hear my opinions, and then get out. We'll see how long this one takes for me to finish. It is Thursday? Is it Thursday or Wednesday? It is actually Wednesday, August the 31st. It's around 3-ish p.m. So actually it's probably around 4, so we'll see how long it takes me to finish. And the line spacing is huge. Oh my god, look at this chapter. Anywho, so I did finish Give the Dark My Love by Beth Revis. I'm kind of shocked. I'm kind of shocked because I assumed, by seeing some of the reviews from people that I like watch or like read the reviews, they gave it like not the best. So I was expecting like a 3 stars, like it's a whatever fantasy, like you pick it up, you read it, whatever, it's fine, and then you get rid of the book because whatever. It's not perfect, but maybe I'm just like maybe I just don't read enough like necromancer stuff, so when I do pick up necromancer fantasy, I really enjoy it because I don't get to experience that a lot. Maybe that's what it could be. But in this book we do follow a young woman who she's poor, but she does get the opportunity to go to a very like fancy university or school to study medicinal alchemy. She gets like a scholarship for 1 year. She specifically wants to study this plague that is mostly focusing on like poor people, like her like where her family lives and stuff like that. And it's a pretty bad plague. Like it's not like a little sniffle and then you pass away. It's like your body starts rotting and it like your limbs start curling in on each other and they become brittle and like dusty, musty. It's like, it's pretty bad. There's a little bit of like some political drama brewing in the background, which I love political drama, and on top of that, a little bit of romance like we expected. Necromancy does become involved to like save the day. However, Understandably, some people were like, the necromancy came kind of late, like later on in the book, which is fine. That's understandable. For me, I understand if that's not what, like, if you wanted more necromancy from like the get-go, like, you're gonna have to wait a little bit. But if you don't mind waiting, like, that shouldn't, it's not that big of a deal, you know what I mean? It's like, whatever. The ending did wrap up pretty well, but there is a second book, I'm pretty sure. I don't know like what the conflict is, because maybe it's like more political, I don't know, because we kind of dealt with something major at the end of the first book, so I don't really know what's going on after here. This is definitely one of those books where our main character has like a descent into morally questionable actions. I'm not saying she's like evil or terrible or anything like that, but she makes decisions that are very tough. And this is one of those YA books where if you like for the author to go there and not only like have your character make tough decisions, but also bad shit just happens to the main character and not afraid to pull punches, I guess, this kind of does that. It is very short. It is very quick. So I enjoyed it for what it was. I was thinking of giving it a 4-star, but maybe that's generous because I'm like on the high of this book, so it might go down to like a 3.5. But I did enjoy it, and I would read the second one. I think it's just a duology, but I could see myself, you know, really enjoying it and maybe even keeping it on my shelves, which was not the plan. The plan was to read a bunch of these YA fantasies and then get rid of some after I've had, you know, my fill. The next book that I've had from a while now, and it's The Queen's Rising by Rebecca Roth. This one just kind of called out to me as I was looking through my YA fantasy, which is up there. I believe in this book, characters have a kind of calling or something that they really enjoy, and then they can go into it like in a kind of mastery apprentice thing. Our main character doesn't know what her like calling is, and when it comes to find a patron, like her, like someone to like apprentice under, I guess, no one offers, so she's kind of like, fuck. And then of course there's political stuff. I'll know more about the plot when I start reading it, but I think we're going to start with this one. I do have the second book of this, so if I don't like this one, I can get rid of this one and the second book. So first things first, my voice, I'm sick, so just ignore that. But I'm still in the middle of The Queen's Rising by Rebecca Roth. I haven't been reading because I did get sick, but I kind of want to fill you in before I actually finish the book. I was thinking of just like giving you all my thoughts on like books like in rapid succession after I finish them, but I have thoughts about this already and I'm not done yet. And I can already tell that one of my biggest issues about this book is that it's not going to be enough for me. And I know it's a duology and the second book could very well like make up for what I'm feeling. And I'll take the L if that's like ends up happening, but I'll explain the plot to you right now and then you'll see what I mean, but I don't think it's gonna be enough for me. So in this world, our main character Brianna lives in a country that really values like passions, so things like art, music, wit, comedy, and intellect. And you go to a school, like a boarding school, for about 7 to 10 years, depends on the school you go to, and in those 7 to 10 years you learn the most about your subject, your passion. And at the end of your term, a bunch of patrons who are looking for an apprentice come to your school. You talk to them about what you've learned. You showcase, if you're like a musician or you're an artist, you showcase what you've worked on. And if they want to take you on, they'll take you as their, you know, their assistant, their, you know, they become your patron. Our main character has not really found a subject that she's super passionate about. She kind of settled on intellect because the first year she did art, and the second year she did music, and the third year she did wit, and the fourth, you know what I mean? She basically only had like 3 years to study intellect. So she knows that she's probably not gonna find a patron, and she's very nervous. So obviously she doesn't find a patron, and this is all on like the flap, so it's not a spoiler. But I really liked that aspect, and I feel like if the book was just on like this passions thing, it could have been like a low stakes high fantasy type of thing, high fantasy low stakes. But also throughout, you know, the first 100 and something pages, we are starting to get introduced to like this rebellion plot line, because Brianna, while her mother is from this country, her father's from a northern country that's more, her father's from a country that is more Viking Scottish inspired, maybe. I haven't met it, I haven't like met the country, like we haven't gone there, so I don't know the vibe. But her mother's country is like French, the passions country is like French, and they kind of have a bad king right now,
but this country used to be ruled by a line of queens with like magic, and she's obviously gonna get involved with like overthrowing that king, which I don't mind either, because politics, overthrowing a bad king, like I love that shit too. But like if the book focused on one or the other, I would have been fine. But like I don't think I'm gonna get enough of what I want. You know what I mean? Like I like both of these things if they were their own thing, but putting them together, it's not that it doesn't work. I just feel like it's gonna be lacking. Like I want like 100 more pages on this passions thing that she goes to school with a group of other girls, and it's like a sisterhood, and she has like crushes on this one guy, and it could have been like a cute, again, high fantasy, low stakes thing. But I also don't mind the rebellion. You know what I mean? Like I feel, I don't know. Maybe I'll finish the book and I'll let you know my thoughts, but that's kind of what I'm feeling right now. Like it's not going to be enough one or the other. Yeah. So this video is not going to plan because I thought that I would just pick up a bunch of like YA fantasies that were like in my like backlist, and I'd give them like the rating they deserve, like a 3 or whatever, and then I'd get rid of them and be like, you know what, it was a nice book, thanks for the adventure, let's unhaul. But I kind of want to keep this one too. What the heck? Okay, so I'm giving the book a 4-star, and my thoughts about it in the last clip still stand. I really love the like school setting thing that they have, and I wanted more of that. Like I would really love a low stakes high fantasy like book set in this world, following that little school passion thing with like the mastery and all that kind of stuff. That would be so fun. And then the rebellion plotline was fine. I always love a good rebellion political stuff going on. But I finished it yesterday, and I had some time to like think about the story overall and not just be like thinking about what I'd say like in the midst of the high. I guess you could say that everything that the author needed to talk about in terms of like world building was said, but I'm the type of reader that I want more, so I wanted more of that school setting personally, but there's nothing lacking, I guess. As far as the rebellion plotline, like that hit every beat it needed to, and then it wrapped up pretty well, but like a little too well. Like I felt very little like tenseness throughout the majority of that plotline. Like it was just like, this is the plan, and it worked out pretty much like how we said we were gonna, you know, it was gonna go. If I didn't know that there was a second book, I'd be like, why is there a second book? Like it's everything it needed to say was said. And I've read the summary of the second book, and I'm like, okay, I can see where you would want to go with that, but like it ended like pretty well. Like if this was a standalone, I'd be like, yeah, all the major questions were asked, and everything else is like up to like the reader's interpretation or whatever. So I don't know. Like I do want to read the second book because I obviously wanted more. Also, another thing that I was thinking about was I wanted more nuance from like the villains, because it was very much like, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, and they're fighting for this side and they're fighting for this side. And I wanted something more, because a few of the characters, specifically the antagonists, might have had reasons for the things that they did or believed in, and I wanted to know what those are. I wanted to have a conversation other than like, oh, you're fighting for that side, so you're obviously bad and I'm gonna kill you. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was a little bare bones for me, but I really enjoyed like the funness of it, especially the beginning with the whole like passions and finding your niche, whether it be art or music or wit or whatever. That was great. I love that. I'll keep this book. I don't know how well the second book is gonna be, and maybe I'll get rid of that one. I'll keep this one. But yeah, the book that I'm gonna pick up next is Seafire. Yeah, Seafire by Natalie C. Parker. I've not heard the best things about this, but I am biased towards books that have like pirates, nautical, ocean, that kind of thing. So maybe I'll enjoy it. I believe that in this book we follow a woman or young girl whose family was killed by some sort of powerful man, and she goes around a captain of a ship, and she like attacks his warships as kind of like little petty revenge, and her whole crew is a group of women. I might have liked that idea when I was much younger, but now I'm worried that this whole all-female crew might come off a little preachy, especially since if that's the author's peak feminism, it's just like a group of women, when feminism so heavily has to do with the intersection of like class and race as well. I don't know, I'm worried that this is gonna be like feminist, you know. but we will see. It is a trilogy, so if I really like it, I have a trilogy to quickly go through. Again, it looks very short, and we check the line spacing. Yeah, line spacing is huge, which tends to be the thing for YA. So I will start on this one, and hopefully I will like it. And if I don't, I can get rid of it, which I would also be happy with, because I want to, you know, clear some of this crap. This is just fantasy, by the way. These shelves just fantasy. These is everything else. And then I have a little baby one. I have to DNF this. Sorry if you hear something in the background, but I have to DNF this. It is so boring. I've been trying to read this for like 6 days, and I've only done 120 pages, and the writing's not like dense or anything. I'm just like not into it at all. Like, it's so boring. It's so surface level. I talked about how I was worried about like this all-female pirate crew. Like, what's the point of that? There's literally no point that it's ever really mentioned why this crew is all women, when it's not like these girls, our main character grew up surrounded by girls. Like, she had brothers, her mother ran kind of like a ship that like helped house like destitute people. So it's not like she has like this thing against men. Like, she just has a girl group, and it's never explained, and it's very like surface level. Like, that it's very heavily inspired by probably Mad Max Fury Road. I'd imagine that's one of the comp titles, but there's nothing. And normally I'd be like, oh, whatever, it's just like fun entertainment, but like even then I'm not entertained that much. Like, if you're gonna have like a fun, exciting adventure YA fantasy, I'm still not having fun. Nothing's really explained. Like, I don't know how the ship works. Like, they imply some sort of like magical, mechanical sci-fi thing. Like, there's this big plot line of like trying to find solar sails, and I was like, okay, what's that? Is that like solar panels but sails? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And nothing's really talked about. It's very much just like, let's get in, get out in an adventure. I don't know. It's boring. I can't read this. I'm DNFing this. Sorry, girl. Sorry, Miss Parker. So, a couple of updates. It has been like days since my last clip. That last book completely ruined my flow. Like, a little bit of a slump. So it took me a while to get through this book, which wasn't slow. Well, it was a little slow paced at the beginning, but it wasn't like written in a way that was hard to get through. And that book was Before She Ignites by Jodi Meadows. I've had my eye on this one kind of for some time. I know it has dragons, and I love dragons, so I picked it up. I gave it a 3-star. I was a bit generous because I think I kind of forced myself out of a slump reading this, so some parts were not super fun, but I think that's kind of like the slump was like affecting it. Something else, I redid my shelves. These, with the exception of my like manga, graphic novels and stuff, all these books are unread. And all these books on this side are read, and there's a Squishmallow. If I ever do like a bookshelf tour or whatever, you know, I'll talk about that more. So this is the first book in the Fallen Isles trilogy. I didn't know much about this before getting into it. I just knew dragons, which was like good enough for me. In this book, we follow a young woman named Mira. She's about like 16 or 17. She lives in one of like the Fallen Isles. I think there's like 6 or 7, and each one has its own culture, and it's like it worships an individual god more than the other 5 or 6. She comes from an island that like worships these 2 lover gods. These islands used to have a lot of like turmoil, and about 16 or 17 years ago, like when she was born, a treaty was signed that basically said like equality for all. Like, we have to take care of the dragons because the dragons are literally like the children of the gods, and if we mistreat the dragons, then like apocalypse era comes, you know. And the treaty was named after Mira. There are a lot of people named Mira named after the treaty, but the treaty itself was named after her. And at some point in the novel, she finds out a big secret and then goes to the wrong people with this information, and she gets put into prison. We don't know what that information is, and she's in prison for a majority of the book. So if that's like an interesting like creative exercise that you want to see how that would play out, like someone majority in like one room for the majority of the book, like
yeah, but it is going to be slow. I think people would be very frustrated with how slow it is, but I love a slow book, so I don't usually mind. But again, I was coming out of a slump, so some parts I was like, let's get it cracking here. A few issues. One, some of the world building I just needed more information on. Why is the treaty named after her? I don't know why. Maybe it's supposed to be a reveal later on in the books, but I feel like that's important information that I would have loved to know in book 1. I don't know why specifically the tree was named after her. I don't know what her importance is until later on in the book. Like, I know she comes from a wealthy family, which could be like well enough, but in this book they consistently reference this luminary council, which by the end of the book I'm like, okay, so they must rule over this island that she's from. I did not know that. The majority of the book I was like, what is their importance? Like, what do they do? Are they just like in charge? Like, is there like a president or something? I don't know. The secret that she finds out, while is a very big important secret, I never really felt like there was any tension in this book. It almost felt like there wasn't a rising a feeling. Like, I know that we were kind of building up to a climax, like I know that's how stories work, but it doesn't really feel like that. I never felt like any like, oh my god, what's the secret, like why is she in prison, like I want to know. I never felt that. We do eventually find out, and then yeah, there's also a big reveal at the end that I kind of knew what it was. I had a feeling, so I wasn't like, it's not like a mystery thriller where you kind of want to like not know what the reveal is, but I knew what it was. It's cool. I thought it was cool. I did enjoy the reading experience, like the last few chapters. Did not love the reading experience the majority of the first like 3/4 of it. If the flow of the last 100 pages or so is what we get for the rest of the series, I would be interested in reading it physically going on, and I think my used bookstore does have a few copies of books 2 and maybe 3, but if not, an audiobook or an ebook from the library would like suffice for me. Let me show you where YA starts. So YA fantasy starts, I guess you could say right here, because before that we have like the School for Good and Evil. So starting from here to here is unread YA, so it's quite a bit. There are a few books that I could point out that I think would be cool. I do have The Bells by Danielle Clayton, I believe that's the author's name. Who else? Given to the Sea by Minnie McGinnis. I don't know too much, but I do love Minnie McGinnis's like what's it called? The Female of the Species. Did like that one. I also I could read which other one? Winter Song by S.J. Jones, but it's not really winter in Texas. It's still kind of hot, so I don't know if that's like the good vibe that I want to go for. Crown of Feathers by Nikki Palpretto. I think they write like phoenixes or something. I think that's cool. I have a lot of options. I do. I really do. So we will see. And I also don't want to read like a sequel to a series. Like I want to start some of these YA series that I've had here. I've never read Adrian Young, and I do have Sky in the Deep. I don't know if this is like a fantasy or like historical fiction. It's just like in the fantasy section, so we'll see. So yeah, those are my options. Hi everyone, it's about time to wrap up the vlog. Before I do, I did finish one more book, so it's 5 books in total for this vlog, which is a nice number to end on. And the last book that I finished was The Novice by Taryn Mathru. This is technically YA, as are the rest of these books, but I would say this is on the younger side of YA, maybe like transitioning out of middle grade, because it's very like straightforward, like surface level type of fantasy. In this book we follow a young boy named Fletcher, and he's about 15 years old, and when he was really young he was just like left in a forest, like baby young. He was left in like a forest, and a blacksmith found him and like took him in, and he's been raised as like a blacksmith's son. And one day during this like trade event, this like fair, a wandering soldier leaves Fletcher this summoner's book. Summoners in this world can like summon demons, and Fletcher being like a super curious like 15-year-old reads from the book and summons a demon. And that's pretty much where our story starts. I gave this book like 3 out of 5 stars. Really quickly I was like, oh, this feels like really young YA. I readjusted like all my expectations and I was like, you know what, for what it was, I'll give it 3 stars. It's not bad, and I'm actually really happy that I picked this one up after like the slumpiness of Seafire and then like struggling to get through before she ignites. So this one was like perfect to kind of get me into like a reading mood. This was quick, very fast. If this was older YA, I might have like knocked it down a bit, because a big theme in this book is like social inequality. This has like your typical like old school fantasy like tropes, like orcs, elves, dwarves, that kind of thing. And dwarves, for example, are like second class citizens. They can live amongst like humans in like the human territory, but they're not treated well. And like the way the author approaches how the dwarves are treated versus like humans, again, it's very surface level, like pretty like on the nose. There's not really any like nuances. You don't have to like think too much. But because it's like younger YA, I was like, you know what, that's fine. That's fine with me. Like I said, it's fine for what it was, and I would continue the series. I'm not saying I'd never pick up another one, but this is not exactly something that I would put at the front of my TBR. If there is like an audiobook for my library, I will pick it up if I need something to read. So this is the last book I read. Let me get the stack together so we can wrap this up. So this is the stack. Honestly, I picked up the Novice because it kind of goes well together, like color scheme wise. So this is the order in which like I would rate the books, from like my most liked to my least liked. Also how likely I am to continue on in the series. Obviously we have Seafire, which I DNF. The Novice I just talked about. Looking back on it, I can definitely see the errors even in like the Queen's Rising, my favorite book of the 5. One of my big motivations for this vlog was, one, to get some of my YA fantasy like off my TBR, off my shelves, and also to see like maybe I can get rid of some that I either don't like or I'm not like interested in keeping. I would say there's probably 3 categories of whether or not like I'll keep these books. Starting with Seafire, I'm obviously gonna get rid of this. I did not like this at all. I was so bored and everything just felt like an amalgamation of like tropes and stuff, and not even like a fun way, because I like tropes. I don't really care if a book is like just tropes and if it's supposed to like, if I'm just supposed to have a good time. But I don't know, like I just could not get into this at all. The writing was not engaging whatsoever. I mean, you've already heard me like gripe about this, so I'm obviously gonna get rid of this one, which sucks because I love like pirate seafaring fantasy, but this was like not it at all. So this one is for sure going off my shelves. And then after that, I would say the Novice. I don't see myself picking up physical copies of this. I prefer an audiobook if there's audiobooks. Also, I didn't know going into this that this was a Wattpad book. I was never a Wattpad girly, but this did have an editor. It wasn't like bad or anything, but yeah. Also, there's a school setting and competition at the end of the school setting, so if that's something that interests you. But I don't see myself keeping these just for like nostalgia or any other reason. It was fine. This one I am also gonna get rid of. And the next category of like whether or not I'll keep it or not, I have these two: Give the Dark My Love and Before She Ignites. So I enjoyed parts of these books more than others. Before She Ignites, I had huge problems with the beginning, and then for Give the Dark My Love, I wanted more depth to it. It is a fairly dark subject matter, some body horror, and I thought that the author could have paced it a little slower, but that's just me. Whether or not I'm keeping this depends on how the series pans out. If I like the series overall and I really enjoy how it ends or continues, I'll keep the books. If, for example, books 2 or 3 or whatever are kind of like duds and it like sours my enjoyment of the series overall, then I'll get rid of these. For now, I'm keeping them. And for the Queen's Rising, I am obviously going to keep this. I love the beginning of this book more and more each day. The ending is not the best. Political intrigue that happens in the second half of the book is like not the strongest, but the beginning I loved. I've never wanted an author to just like tear up half of the book and just like say, you know what, the first half. There's a certain series about a boy at a magical school that I hear a lot of fans talk about how they wish that series was more like low-key, nothing like big end of the world evil sorcerer type stuff. And like that's kind of what I wanted from this book. I wanted our main character to stay at the school and just like deal with like interpersonal like chill drama, nothing like too severe. That's what I wanted from this book. But I do really love the beginning so much, and I kind of just want to reread the first chapters of like the setting because I really enjoyed it. That is the stack of YA that I've gone through within the past few weeks. Honestly, Seafire totally killed the mood for a little bit. This vlog has gone on longer than I expected. I thought it was gonna be a week. It's been like almost 3 weeks. Got 5 books off my TBR. I am gonna get rid of 2. 2 are on like the pending list depending on how the series pans out, and for sure I'm just gonna keep this one 100%. Feel free to talk to me in the comments down below about anything that I've talked about. Have you read these books? Like them, dislike them, talk to me about anything. I will link my social medias down below as well as some far more important links. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.